The glamour of Hong Kong's golden age of television hid a darkness few dared to name. It was a world of bright lights and brutal secrets, where smiles were currency and silence was the ultimate price. And no one understood that cost more than Yammie. She was the era's radiant goddess, an actress whose presence could command a screen and whose performances defined a generation. But her story is not one of enduring fame. It's a chilling blueprint of a system that builds stars only to discard them when they become inconvenient. Her tragic end wasn't just a personal downfall. It was a message, a warning whispered from the grave about the rot festering beneath the glitter. This is the story they hoped you would forget. Yammie's ascent was meteoric. For nearly a decade, she was one of TVB's most beloved faces, an actress praised not just for her luminous beauty, but for a profound depth she brought to every role. She wasn't just playing characters, she was living them, breathing a soul into the scripts that made critics hail her as the future of Hong Kong entertainment. The industry adored her, the public worshipped her, and it seemed her star would never dim. But that brilliant light cast long shadows, and behind the scenes, the pressure was mounting. The relentless pace, the demand for perfection, and the unforgiving nature of fame began to take a toll. Whispers started on set, missed cues, unexplained absences, a visible withdrawal from the very world that celebrated her. What the public saw as a star fading, those closer to the industry began to frame as a woman breaking. Instead of a support system, she found a wall of silence. In an empire built on illusion, vulnerability was a liability, and Yammie was becoming a major risk. By the mid-1990s, the whispers had become headlines. The same tabloids that once glorified her beauty now cruelly documented her decline, publishing photos of her in moments of distress with labels like unstable and crazy. A severe emotional breakdown led to diagnoses of depression and schizophrenia, but instead of care, she faced isolation. Her phone stopped ringing with job offers, her colleagues distanced themselves, and the industry that once propped her up now watched her fall from a safe distance. She lost her savings under mysterious circumstances. Some said bad investments, others whispered of betrayal by trusted figures. Her world shrank to a small, cluttered apartment in Stanley, where neighbors would see her muttering to herself, a ghost of the woman she used to be. It was a classic, tragic arc of a fallen star, but the public didn't know the half of it. The real scandal wasn't her illness, it was the reason behind it, a secret she held for decades, a truth so explosive it would threaten to bring down the very giants who abandoned her. The silence was shattered in 2013. In a grainy, unsettling video, a thin and trembling Yammie sat before a camera and through tears confessed the trauma that she claimed had unraveled her life. She alleged that she had been raped by two powerful, well-connected men within the entertainment industry. She didn't name them outright, speaking in coded language about figures so influential they were considered untouchable. This wasn't just a personal revelation. It was a direct accusation against the hidden power structure of Hong Kong's entertainment world. The video was, but someone had their finger on the trigger. When the recording made by actress Elaine was presented to media outlets, most refused to air it. Reports surfaced that tapes were edited, segments were cut, and some copies simply vanished. The industry's wall of silence had become an active suppression. In private, everyone was whispering. Names circulated in hushed tones, a beloved public actor, a well-connected mainland mogul with ties to both film and politics. But publicly, nothing. Defamation laws were a potent shield for the powerful, and Yammie's truth was buried under a mountain of legal fear and collective complicity. For years, her confession lived as a dark ghost story within the industry, a known secret nobody dared to print. But then in 2018, the digital world gave her a voice the traditional media had denied. A longer version of the video resurfaced online, subtitled and shared virally across Chinese social media platforms. The timing was explosive, coinciding with the global momentum of the Me Too movement. Suddenly, a new generation was listening. Netizens, no longer constrained by the old gatekeepers, began connecting the dots. Online forums ignited with speculation, and one name began to trend with alarming frequency: Eric Tang, a charismatic and deeply connected actor and host. The allegations were never proven, and Tang immediately issued fierce denials and legal threats, causing many posts to disappear. But the secret was no longer containable. The public reaction was a mixture of outrage and grim validation. Yammie's story was no longer just about one woman's tragedy. It became a symbol of the systemic abuse and cover-ups that many had long suspected. It forced an uncomfortable public conversation about the price of fame for women and the invisible networks of power that protected predators. The resurgence of her story made Yammie dangerous again. Just as her voice was finding a new audience and her allegations were gaining unprecedented traction, the unthinkable happened. On November 3, 2018, police forced their way into her Stanley apartment. Inside, they found Yammie's body already decomposing, alone on her bathroom floor. The official report was swift and quiet. No signs of foul play, likely natural causes. Authorities shut the file before the ink on the report had even dried. But to the online community that had just resurrected her story, the timing was beyond coincidence. It was deeply sinister. How could a woman who had just shaken the foundations of the industry die so silently, so conveniently? Rumors began to swirl of unidentified visitors to her apartment in her final weeks, of whispered threats, and of a system finally tying up its loosest end. Her funeral was a stark contrast to her former fame, attended by only a handful of people, a somber testament to the isolation she endured. The industry's silence in her death was louder than any eulogy could have been. So, what's next for the legacy of Yammie? Her official cause of death may never be challenged, but the court of public opinion remains in permanent session. Her story refuses to die, resurfacing in online discussions about abuse of power and the dark side of Asian entertainment. She has become an icon not of glamour but of resistance, a tragic reminder of what can happen when a victim speaks truth to power. The question is no longer just about what happened to Yammie in that apartment, but about how many other stories are still buried under the same blanket of silence and fear. Her life and her chilling, untimely end force us to ask, who else is living in the shadows of a system that values reputation over truth? The investigation is closed, but the mystery is very much alive. And as long as her story is told, the search for answers continues.